He had died once, and it was the most humiliating way to globetrade by the man he thought he would spend forever with. Funny thing about fate. It liked to mock you before it handed you another shot. And when Gabriel opened his eyes in the past, staring at the all-too-familiar ceiling of his college dorm, he knew he had one last chance to rewrite everything. The air smelled like cheap instant coffee and dust, exactly how he remembered. His heart pounded, not from the shock of being alive again, but from the memory of what was coming, the lies, the manipulation, the way he had been dragged into a relationship that shattered his spirit. But this time, he whispered to himself, not again. He swung his legs over the bed, fingers trembling as he pressed them against the cool metal of the dorm frame. The mirror across the room caught his reflection. 20 again, soft features untouched by years of heartbreak, and those same gray eyes carrying the storm of 2 lifetimes. His chest tightened. I can save him this time. I can save us. Because if there was one thing he knew with unwavering certainty, it was this: Ethan, the boy with laughter brighter than any sunrise, the alpha who had always stood on the edges of his world, was his true mate. And he wasn't going to let anyone steal that from him again. The campus buzzed with its usual chaos: students rushing to classes, professors scribbling notes on flyers taped to corkboards, and the lingering smell of autumn leaves curling in piles along the sidewalks. Gabriel walked with determination, his backpack heavy not with books but with the weight of his vow. He spotted him, Ethan, leaning against a brick wall with that lazy grin, sun lighting his sandy blonde hair into gold. His blue eyes flicked up, and just like before met Gabriel's, time collapsed, the years of pain, longing, and regret vanishing in that one electric gaze. Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost, Ethan teased, his voice warm and casual. Gabriel's throat tightened. You don't know the half of it. Instead, he smirked faintly, masking the storm in his chest. Maybe I have. It was reckless, the way he walked closer, the way his body already leaned toward the alpha's presence. He remembered everything: the way Ethan had once stood between him and danger, the way his laugh had filled empty rooms, the way his hand had felt steadying his. And he remembered losing him, too, watching Ethan slip through his fingers because he had been too blinded by another's lies. Not this time. Later that night, Gabriel sat alone on the steps of the library, shivering in the crisp air. His memories spun like a cruel carousel: the betrayal, the loneliness, the last breath he had taken in his past life. A shadow fell over him, and he looked up. Ethan again, holding out a steaming cup of coffee like it was the simplest thing in the world. You looked cold, Ethan said, shrugging, as though he hadn't just turned Gabriel's entire world upside down. Gabriel's lips parted, and he almost said, I missed you for years. I loved you even when I thought I had to forget you. But he swallowed the words, gripping the paper cup instead, letting the heat seep into his frozen fingers. Thanks, he murmured, voice unsteady. Ethan sat beside him, shoulder brushing his. The contact was small, accidental maybe, but it burned through Gabriel's entire body. He inhaled sharply, caught between the instinctive pull of the bond and the sharp ache of memory. Ethan smelled of pine and safety, exactly as he remembered. You're acting strange, Ethan noted, glancing at him sideways with a grin. Like you know something I don't. Gabriel forced a laugh, bitter at the edges. If you knew everything, you'd run. But Ethan didn't run. He stayed. The first test of his new life came faster than expected. Ryan, the alpha who had once been his downfall, who had lured him into a toxic relationship, who had betrayed him so cruelly. Seeing him again felt like ice down Gabriel's spine. Gabriel, Ryan drawled, flashing the same smile that once charmed him blind. Didn't think I'd catch you here. You look good. Gabriel's heart lurched with memories, Ryan's hand gripping his wrist too tightly, the whispers that cut deeper than knives, the loneliness that followed every kiss. But this time he stood taller, his gaze cold. Stay away from me. Ryan blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. What's this? Playing hard to get. Before Gabriel could speak, Ethan appeared, his presence sharp and commanding. He stepped in front of Gabriel without hesitation, blue eyes blazing. He said, stay away. You deaf or just stupid? The tension crackled in the air. Ryan's smirk faltered, but he leaned back with a mocking bow. Fine. Play it your way. When he left, Gabriel's breath trembled in his chest. Ethan turned, scanning his face, and his voice softened. You okay? Gabriel nodded, though his whole body shook. He hadn't realized how badly he needed this someone standing beside him. Someone who wouldn't let the darkness swallow him whole. For the first time since waking in this second chance, Gabriel felt the fragile promise of safety. And he swore to himself again he wouldn't waste it. Gabriel didn't realize how long he had been standing there, staring at the quiet lake just beyond the dorms. The moonlight glimmered against the water, fractured into 1,000 trembling shards. His chest felt the same shattered, fractured, yet still beating with something that refused to give up. It had been weeks since Ryan tried to force his way back into his life. Weeks of Ethan's steady presence, his warm smiles, his infuriatingly gentle jokes that always made Gabriel laugh even when he didn't want to. And now, as the cool night pressed against his skin, Gabriel knew the moment was close. Why do you always come here when you're hurting? Ethan's voice broke into his thoughts, low and careful. Gabriel turned. Ethan stood a few feet away, hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jacket. The breeze tugged at his blonde hair, his blue eyes softened by something fragile, something unguarded. Because it's quiet, Gabriel admitted. And because I don't know how to breathe anywhere else. Ethan stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until the warmth of his presence wrapped around Gabriel like a shield. Then let me breathe with you. The words undid him. Gabriel's throat closed, tears burning hot and sharp as he pressed a trembling hand against Ethan's chest. He could feel the alpha's heartbeat strong, steady, everything he had longed for across lifetimes. I wasted so much time, Gabriel whispered, voice breaking. I trusted the wrong person. I let myself be destroyed. And I lost you once. I can't lose you again. Ethan's hand came up, cupping his face with infinite care. His thumb brushed the wetness at the corner of Gabriel's eye. His voice rough but certain. You won't. Not this time. I don't care what the past was. I'm here. With you. The bond snapped into place like lightning, undeniable, searing. Gabriel gasped, feeling it coil around his very soul, their fated connection. The truth he had carried through death and back. You're mine? Ethan breathed, forehead pressing to his. And I'm yours. Gabriel nodded, choked by sobs that turned into a broken laugh. Finally, Ryan didn't take the rejection well. His pride cracked into rage, and his threats began to crawl out from the shadows. Whispers, rumors, even attempts to corner Gabriel when Ethan wasn't around. But Gabriel was no longer the boy who bowed his head in silence. One evening, when Ryan caught him outside the art studio, Gabriel stood tall, his voice steady. You don't own me. You never did. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. Ryan's eyes darkened. You'll regret this. Maybe I regretted loving the wrong person. Gabriel shot back, his hand tightening around his backpack strap. But I'll never regret choosing myself. And I'll never regret choosing him. Ethan arrived then, as if fate had orchestrated it, stepping between them once again. His stance was calm but lethal, the alpha in him radiating through every line of his body. You heard him. Stay away. If you can't understand that, you'll deal with me. For the first time, Ryan faltered. He saw an unshakable bond, the fire in Gabriel's eyes, the strength he could no longer break. He sneered, spat a few bitter words, and walked away. And just like that, the shadow that haunted Gabriel's 2 lives finally broke. The months that followed were softer, though not without their challenges. Gabriel and Ethan learned each other anew, small things like the way Ethan liked his coffee too sweet, or how Gabriel hummed when he sketched, filling silences with warmth. There were nights filled with laughter, tangled limbs on Ethan's bed, whispered promises that stretched into dawn. And there were nights when Gabriel woke shaking from nightmares of the past, only to find Ethan's arms wrapping around him, grounding him with murmured words of love. I've got you, Ethan would say every time. I'll always have you. And Gabriel believed him. Graduation came with its chaos of caps and gowns, photographs and speeches. Gabriel stood in the crowd, sunlight pouring across the campus lawns, and realized he had done it, had lived again, chosen differently, carved a future with his own hands. As the ceremony ended, Ethan found him, tugging him away from the crowd, laughing as though the world couldn't touch them. They ended up on the rooftop of their dorm. The city sprawled out beneath them, the wind carrying the scent of summer. Gabriel leaned into him, gray eyes bright with unshed tears. "We made it." Ethan kissed the top of his head, holding him tighter. "No, you made it. You fought for this. For us." Gabriel tilted his face up, lips brushing Ethan's in a kiss that was both a promise and a release. The past didn't own him anymore. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the death, it had all led here, to this moment of love reborn. When they pulled back, Ethan smiled softly. "So, what's next?" Gabriel laughed, the sound light and free. "Anything we want, as long as we're together." Years later, on a quiet porch of a small house nestled at the edge of a forest, Gabriel watched the sunset bleed across the sky. Ethan's arm was around him, warm and steady, their fingers intertwined. The ghosts of the past still whispered sometimes, but they no longer ruled him. He had chosen love, chosen healing, chosen the alpha who had been his destiny all along. And as Ethan pressed a kiss to his temple, Gabriel closed his eyes and smiled, knowing with absolute certainty that this was his forever. Not stolen, not broken, just theirs. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.